Hey, film dorks, what's going on? Let's Scare Jessica to Death is a 1971 psychological vampire horror film directed by John Hancock from a script by Lee Calchum and John Hancock, starring Zora Lampert, Mara Claire Costello, Barton Heyman, and Kevin O'Connor. So basically, John Hancock was this really big deal theater director in the New York and San Francisco theater scenes, and the producers really wanted to work with him. They contacted Hancock and were like, hey, do you want to work on a feature film? We'd love to hire you. We have this great horror comedy script called It Drinks Hippie Blood. And Hancock was like, hey, I'd love to make a film, but this sucks. And they were like, hey, we're desperate enough to work with you that we will let you do anything as long as the script fits certain specific requirements that we have. Hancock rewrote the script pretty much from scratch. He cast people, he assembled his crew, and he went off to rural Connecticut to film Let's Scare Jessica to Death. So I know what you're thinking. With a title like that, this is probably some low-budget piece of garbage where these obnoxious hippies decide to pull a prank on their square friend, and it goes horribly wrong, and she comes back from the dead to seek revenge. Probably with a score by Goblin. Yeah, and you'd be wrong about everything except the budget. The movie follows Jessica, a woman recently released from a psychiatric hospital who moves with her husband Duncan to an apple farm in Connecticut after her doctors advise a quieter life.
Okay, waltz us around again, Woody.
With them is their friend Woody, who's come to help them get the apple orchard up and running and then plans on drifting off to other things. But when the three of them arrive at their new home, they discover a young woman named Emily is already living in the house, and rather than just kick her out, they invite her to stay. Multiple love triangles ensue as Emily worms her way into their lives. Meanwhile, Jessica and Duncan learn of a local legend of a vampire who haunts the area, and who bears a striking resemblance to their new friend.
My lord, it does.
Let me just get this out of the way right off the bat and say I love this movie. This, in my opinion, is one of the best horror movies of the 1970s. A lot of that hinges on Zora Lampert's performance as Jessica. She's vulnerable and sometimes has a childlike innocence about her, and other times is just heartbreakingly earnest.
Who cares?
Mara Claire Costello is also pretty fantastic here as Emily. Her performance shifts constantly and in such subtle ways that sometimes you can't tell if it's your imagination or if things have taken a turn. The cinematography by Robert M. Baldwin is just absolutely gorgeous throughout. I mean, just look at these shots. And it does a great job of grounding us in Jessica's perspective. Everything here is pretty much filtered through her consciousness, even if those things aren't real. And sometimes it's really hard to tell. Sometimes even Jessica doesn't know for sure if these are real things or hallucinations.
I don't know which is which.
The sound design here is chef's kiss. The score is just hauntingly beautiful, these piano and guitar pieces. And on the flip side of that, there's all these moments of just jarring synth chords and strange noises. Side note, this was one of the first horror scores to use synthesizers. Throughout much of the film, there's this bed of incessant, barely audible whispers, which just really gets under your skin and gives you a real clear sense of what it's like to be Jessica. Also, this is one of the most original takes on vampire lore that I've ever seen. Now, what didn't I like? The short answer here? Not much. There's this whole mini story arc about this mole that they capture outside and they make a pet out of it, and then what happens to the mole, and it's pretty clearly a field mouse. My understanding is that basically the director found out at the last minute he couldn't get the mole he was promised, and so they had to substitute a different rodent. But they kept all of the dialogue to still refer to the mole. As somebody who grew up in the country, this is something that really stands out to me. On the other hand, the fact they're supposed to be city people who are out of their depth, of course they're going to say it's a mole. They don't know what the potato it is. They don't know what they're doing. Also, if we fully accept that the vampire plot is what's actually happening, it's kind of strange that they seem to be completely focused on tormenting Jessica as much as possible, rather than the whole group, or say, Woody or Duncan. And they never really give a reason for that. That kind of works too. because it helps to perpetuate the sense of ambiguity. Are they actually centering their attentions on Jessica, or does it just feel that way because she's paranoid? I'm gonna give Let's Scare Jessica to Death 4 out of 5 potatoes. It is one of my favorite movies, it's definitely one of my favorite 70s horror films, but at the end of the day, it's still a low-budget 70s horror film with all of the limitations that implies. So, is it a 5 out of 5? No. Do I enjoy it about as much as I do 5 out of 5 films? Yeah, pretty close. Honestly, there's a good chance that you will too. If you're into 70s low-budget horror, if you're into psychological thrillers, or if you're into independent movies that look at women on the verge of mental illness with compassion and sensitivity. Guys, thanks as always for watching. Have you seen Let's Scare Jessica to Death? What did you think of it? Or what's your favorite 1970s hidden gem? Let me know down there. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll leave a like, show a friend, subscribe. Stay tuned for my December trio, in which I'll outline my cinematic journey of 2021, the highs, the lows, the weird-ass detours. Until then, stay safe, happy, and well, and I'll see you on the flip side.